Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're dusting off our best tailcoats.
And tightening our corsets.
Exactly, metaphorically, of course, because season 4 of Bridgerton is finally upon us. And look, I know the drill. We tune in for the romance, the incredible costumes, the
string quartet covers of Billie Eilish.
Yeah, the sheer spectacle of it all.
I mean, it is the ultimate comfort watch. It's vibrant, it's dramatic, and it's just really beautiful to look at.
It really is, but here's the thing. If you are only watching for the longing stares across the ballroom, you might actually be missing the invisible architecture that holds the whole show together. Because this season, specifically with the focus on Benedict and Sophie, the stakes feel different. It's not just about who loves whom. It's about a pretty brutal set of social codes that are hidden right inside the vocabulary they use.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
To truly understand the tension in this new season, you have to understand the labels society is slapping onto these characters.
Yeah.
These aren't just quaint, old-timey words thrown in for flavor. They are social cages.
Wow. Cages.
Yeah, they dictate where you can go, who you can speak to, and ultimately whether you survive in this world or get eaten alive.
And usually we let these words just wash over us, like we hear rake or ton, and we kind of get the gist.
We think we do.
Right. But today, our mission is to stop and actually decode the Regency-era slang that really defines season 4. We've pulled together a stack of notes, a guide to the season's most scandalous slang, historical guides, linguistic breakdowns.
The whole works.
Yeah. We are going to analyze the season's most loaded terms. We're covering everything from the class dynamics of a word like ward to the very specific and honestly quite surprising euphemisms for intimacy.
We're going to break down terms like ward, rake, ton, and pinnacle to reveal what they actually signal about status and reputation.
Because in the Bridgerton universe, a single word can ruin you or make you.
Absolutely.
So let's dive right into the deep end with the central couple of season 4, Benedict and Sophie. Their entire dynamic is defined by two opposing labels. We have to start with Sophie, who is introduced right out of the gate as a ward.
Now, ward is one of those words that modern audiences hear, and we kind of glaze over it. It sounds clinical.
It does. You think of a hospital wing, maybe?
Or a very formal legal document like, I am a ward of the state.
Exactly. It sounds protective. On paper, being a ward means you are an orphan who has been legally placed under the protection of a guardian. It implies safety. It implies this sort of, I am responsible for you, I will ensure your well-being kind of dynamic.
That is the theory, yes.
Yeah.
But the historical reality, and specifically Sophie's reality in this season, is much darker.
Tell me about that.
Well, in the Regency context, being a ward was often a state of extreme vulnerability. You are technically a part of a family, but if you don't have your own fortune or a legitimate blood claim to the inheritance,
You're stuck.
you have no real agency. You are entirely at the mercy of your guardian's goodwill.
And that's the crucial friction for Sophie here. The source material highlights that she is the Earl of Penworth's ward, but everyone knows the open secret.
That she is his illegitimate daughter.
Right, the not-so-secret love child. So she has the blood of the aristocracy, but legally, she's a ghost.
She's a non-person. And this is where the term ward becomes a trap. Usually, a high-born ward would be treated effectively as a child of the house.
So they'd be educated alongside the legitimate children.
Exactly. Clothed in the same silks, prepared for the marriage market. But when Sophie's father dies, she is left with her stepmother, Lady Araminta.
Oh, boy.
And Araminta weaponizes that ward status.
Yeah, the notes describe it so vividly. Lady Araminta doesn't treat her like a protected dependent at all. She treats her like unpaid labor.
Precisely.
Sophie is effectively a maid, but because she's a ward, she can't just quit and get another job. She's legally bound to the house. It's almost like a prison sentence.
It's a form of genteel servitude. The world calls her a ward, which suggests status and care. But her lived reality is servitude and secrecy.
It's awful.
It creates this incredible psychological friction. I mean, she is in the house, but not of the house. She sees the luxury, but she scrubs the floors.
Which really sets the stage perfectly for her counterpart, Benedict Bridgerton. Because if Sophie is defined by her confinement and her lack of options, Benedict is defined by the term rake.
Ah, the rake.
The classic.
The archetype we all love to hate, or perhaps hate to love.
Yeah.
It is a staple of the romance genre.
It is, but I was actually surprised by the etymology here. I always thought it had something to do with gardening.
Gardening.
Yeah, like raking up trouble. Or maybe just a random old word, but it's actually short for rake hell.
Rake hell. It emerged in the 16th century, and it's such a visceral image, isn't it?
Totally.
Someone who would rake through the fires of hell to find their pleasure.
That is so much more metal than just calling someone a bad boy.
Right.
It implies a level of destruction, or at least a complete disregard for one's soul.
It really does. Now, by the time we get to the Regency era, the term had softened slightly into a specific social category, but the edge was still there.
So what did it mean in practice?
A rake is an upper-class man known for bohemian and promiscuous behavior. We're talking about excessive drinking, high-stakes gambling, and, crucially, widely publicized sexual exploits.
The trifecta of bad behavior.
Exactly.
But there is a class distinction here that I think is really important to point out from the sources. If a poor man acts this way, he's a drunkard, a lecher, or a degenerate.
Right.
But if a wealthy man does it, he's a rake.
That's the double standard. The label rake implies a certain glamour. It implies that you have the money and the social capital to get away with it.
You can just buy your way out of trouble.
You can afford the gambling losses. You can afford to pay off the people you offend.
Yeah.
And the source material makes a joke that I think is spot on.
Let's hear it.
If rake had a photo in the dictionary, it would be Benedikta Bridgerton.
Oh, it fits him perfectly. He is the family's free spirit. We've seen him for 3 seasons now at these underground art parties, engaging in fluid relationships,
Dodging responsibility.
staying out all night. He totally embodies that rake hell energy of doing exactly what he wants when he wants.
But think about the narrative tension that sets up for season 4.
That's huge.
You have the ultimate rake, a man defined by his excessive freedom, his ability to move through society without consequences,
Yeah.
and he's falling for the ward, a woman defined by her total lack of freedom and her desperate need for protection.
It's the ultimate clash of social statuses. The man who breaks all the rules falling for the woman who is completely crushed by them.
And the question becomes, can the rake give up his freedom to offer the protection she needs?
Or will his reputation actually endanger her further?
Exactly. Because in this world, association matters. If a rake pays attention to a proper lady, it's a scandal. If he pays attention to a vulnerable ward, it could be ruinous.
Which brings us to the arena where this whole battle takes place. We need to talk about the ton.
Yes, the ton.
Now, I have to admit, when I first started watching period dramas, I thought ton was just a British affectation for town. Like, we're going to town, but fancy.
You are definitely not alone in that. It's a very common misconception.
It sounds so similar.
It does. And they're always in London, so it makes logical sense.
Yeah.
But ton is actually derived from the French phrase le bon ton.
Le bon ton. Good ton, or good manners.
Right. It translates to good manners, good form, or fashionable style.
Okay.
So when people refer to the ton, they aren't talking about the geography of London. They are talking about a specific subset of the population.
The high society elite who embody those manners.
Exactly.
It's the in crowd, the 1%.
The 0.1%, really. These are the families who travel to London for the social season, which runs from January to July.
And they aren't there just to hang out.
No, they're there to sit in Parliament and, more importantly, to marry off their children. They generate the gossip that becomes the talk of the ton.
It's a self-reinforcing ecosystem. If you are in the ton, you exist. If you aren't, you're invisible.
Yeah, true.
What I found fascinating in the notes is how this ecosystem maintains its boundaries. It's not just about birth, it's about signaling.
Oh, absolutely.
And one of the key gatekeepers, someone I hadn't really thought of as a power player until I read this, is the modiste.
Oh, the modiste is essential.
Wow.
And again, we have to correct a modern assumption here.
Right.
A modiste is not just a seamstress. You don't go to the modiste just to get a hem fixed or a button sewn on.
See, it sounds fancy, so I assumed it was just a fancy word for tailor.
It's much more than that. A modiste was part designer, part stylist, and part society insider.
A triple threat.
Their job was to curate dresses, hats, and accessories, but they had to do it with a very keen eye on the trends coming in from France.
Which is interesting historically because during much of this period, England and France were at war or politically hostile.
Yes.
Yet French fashion was still the gold standard.
Absolutely. Politics stopped at the hemline. London society was obsessed with French silhouettes. The modiste was the conduit for that level of cool. But think about the function they serve in the Bridgerton narrative. In a society obsessed with le bon ton good form clothing is your primary signal.
It's your armor.
It really is. The modiste helps clients signal their place within the hierarchy.
So it's about status, not just fabric.
Yes. If you are wearing the latest cut from Paris, you are signaling power, wealth, and relevance. If you're wearing last season's silk or a cut that is 6 months out of date, you're signaling decline.
You're signaling that you don't matter.
Exactly.
So when the characters visit the modiste like Madame Delacroix in the show, it's not a shopping trip, it's a strategy meeting. You are arming yourself for war.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And Madame Delacroix knows everyone's secrets because she knows whose waistline is changing, who can't pay their bills, who is trying to reinvent themselves.
She's a broker of information as much as fashion.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have the players, the ward and the rake, we have the arena, the ton, and the modiste. Now we need to talk about the scoreboard.
Stakes.
Right. How do you win or lose this game? The sources highlight 2 terms that represent the extremes of failure for women: on the shelf and ruined.
Both terrifying, but in very different ways.
Let's start with on the shelf. The source uses a sports analogy here that I really like.
The bench?
Yeah. If the social season is the game, being on the shelf is like riding the bench.
It's the sideline, but it's a permanent sideline.
Tell us what it actually means specifically for these women. Is it just being single?
It's more specific than that. The phrase appeared in the early 19th century, and it basically means a woman has no real prospects for marriage.
Okay.
But the guide points out that it was often used as a snarkier alternative to simply calling someone a spinster.
Interesting, because spinster is a legal status, right?
Yes, whereas on the shelf is a social judgment.
Spinster sounds sad, but on the shelf sounds like you're a product that nobody bought. It's incredibly commodifying.
It is. You were displayed in the shop window, the ballroom, season after season, and nobody took you home. So society mentally moves you to the back storage. You cease to be a participant in the market.
Brutal. But what's interesting in season 4 is how Eloise Bridgerton interacts with this term. We see her using it about herself, and she doesn't seem sad about it.
Not at all.
She almost wears it like a badge of honor. She openly declares herself on the shelf to Penelope.
That is a fascinating reclamation of the term. For Eloise, this seems to be a choice.
Right.
She uses the phrase to announce that she is stepping away from the marriage mart. She intends to remain single.
So she's taking a derogatory label and turning it into a status of independence. I'm on the shelf because I choose not to be bought.
Exactly. It frames the shelf as a place of safety rather than failure. She's opting out of the game entirely.
But then we have the term for the women who played the game and lost everything, the term ruined.
The tone really shifts here.
It does. On the shelf is snarky. Ruined is catastrophic.
It is the nuclear option of Regency slang.
Define it for us.
Ruined is the label given to women whose virtue was considered compromised. In this specific context, we are almost always talking about premarital sex, or even just the appearance of impropriety.
And we're not just talking about a bad reputation or some nasty gossip. The consequences described here are severe.
It's social death. A ruined woman was a social pariah. She would be excluded from the ton entirely.
No invitations.
No marriages, often no contact with former friends. But what's so insidious about this label, and why it raises the stakes for the Benedict and Sophie romance so high, is that it is contagious.
Contagious? How so?
Even being associated with a ruined woman could damage another person's reputation. If you were seen with her, your stock goes down.
So that's why families would cut off daughters or sisters who were ruined?
Yes. It wasn't just anger, it was economic self-preservation.
Because if you have 3 other daughters to marry off, you cannot afford to have a ruined sibling tainting their prospects.
Precisely. It establishes the incredibly high stakes of the romance plot.
That puts the Benedict and Sophie dynamic into such sharp relief. We talked about him being a rake. He can sleep with whoever he wants and society just shrugs.
Maybe even winks.
Right. But if Sophie steps out of line, she's not just a ward anymore, she's ruined.
The cliff edge is right there for her. Benedict can dangle his feet over the edge, but Sophie is standing on a crumbling ledge.
That is the fundamental inequality of the era. The risks are entirely lopsided.
Without a doubt.
Speaking of risks and the rewards, we have one final term to unpack, and this one is a bit steamy. The pinnacle.
Yes. We can't discuss Bridgerton without discussing the intimacy.
It's part of the show's DNA.
It really is.
The source material calls pinnacle a euphemism, but it's pretty specific. Now, in modern English, pinnacle just means the highest point of achievement, like I've reached the pinnacle of my career.
Right. But in the Regency era, and in the show specifically when Francesca asks Penelope about it, pinnacle refers to the peak of female sexual pleasure.
The climax.
The climax. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is a historical fact from the deep dive that I think surprises a lot of people.
I was definitely surprised.
In the modern world, we assume that historically, Female pleasure was ignored or treated as non-existent.
Totally.
But in the Regency era, there was still a lingering medical belief dating back to Galen in ancient Greece that the pinnacle was actually necessary for conception to occur.
Wait, really? So they thought if the woman didn't finish, she couldn't get pregnant?
Exactly. It was the two-seed theory. It was a widely held medical view that both parties had to reach the pinnacle to create life.
Wow.
If there was no pleasure for the woman, there would be no baby. So strangely enough, the pursuit of female pleasure wasn't just recreational.
It was seen as a biological necessity for producing an heir.
Yes.
That puts a whole different spin on the duty of producing an heir. It almost makes the Regency era more progressive in the bedroom than the Victorian era that followed.
Where that idea was totally suppressed. It really does.
Yeah. And while we use much more explicit terms today, the source notes the pursuit of the pinnacle is a timeless theme in the show.
It's about women discovering their own agency and pleasure in a world that tries to control their bodies.
It's the one area where they are encouraged to lose control, supposedly for the good of the family line.
It's wild to think about Francesca asking about this in season 4. It shows that beneath the stiff manners of the ton, beneath the corsets and the good form, there's this desperate need to understand how things actually work.
And that's what slang does, right? It gives people a way to talk about the things they aren't supposed to talk about.
Whether it's sex, status, or failure, it creates a secret map of the world.
So let's look at the map we've drawn here. We've got the ward and the rake, our central conflict. We've got the ton and the modiste, the battlefield and the uniform.
Right.
We've got the threats being left on the shelf or being totally ruined. And we've got the hidden goal, the pinnacle.
It really covers the entire human experience of the era, doesn't it? From the clothes on your back to the most intimate moments in the dark.
It does. It's not just vocabulary, it's a plot outline.
And, if we step back and look at this list as a whole, something really stands out to me. A final thought to leave you with.
What's that?
Look at the gender dynamics buried in the words themselves. We tend to view these slang terms as just old-fashioned descriptions, quirky words from the past.
Right.
But look closer. Ward, ruined, on the shelf, even pinnacle in its medical context of conception. These are all terms that define a woman's value solely by her relationship to men or marriage.
You're right. Ward means you're protected by a man. Ruined means you've been damaged by a man.
And on the shelf means no man wants you.
Wow.
Exactly. Whereas rake, that defines a man by his freedom, by his action, by his refusal to be tied down.
It's an active label.
Yes. The women's labels are passive. They are things that happen to you.
That is a powerful distinction. It frames the whole season differently. It's not just about finding love, it's about fighting the dictionary.
So as you watch season 4, as you watch Benedict and Sophie try to navigate this minefield, ask yourself a question.
Okay.
Is the happy ending we are rooting for simply about them escaping the bad labels? Or is it about them finding a way to redefine the labels entirely?
Can you be a rake who commits? Can you be a ward who commands power?
That's the real drama. Not just who kisses whom, but who gets to decide what the words mean.
I love that. A linguistic revolution in a ballroom. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the scandalous slang of Bridgerton. We hope you are now fully prepped to understand every whisper of the ton.
Watch out for the rakes.
Always. See you next time.